Hello and welcome to the Shipper Update. I'm Anthony Smith, lead economist here at FreightWaves, and I'm alongside the one and only Donnie Gilbert. And Donnie, we're going to talk about a little bit of what's going on in one of the most anticipated indices that we have within Sonar, and that's going to be the Logistics Managers Index. We've heard you, we've wanted more LMI updates, and so we have more LMI updates. I had a chance to chat with the great professor, Zach Rogers, to kind of go over some of the big headline items of the most recent release. And so what we have behind us here in this lovely Sonar chart here, in the blue line, we have, of course, the Logistics Managers Index, which we'll kind of get into a little bit here later. But in the orange line here, we have our OTRI. Of course, I love to see the two, how they kind of compare to one another. But jumping into what's going on within the Logistics Managers Index, we saw that there was a downward movement to 72 percentage points. So reading the LMI, the Logistics Managers Index, is similar to the PMI, Donnie, wherein anything over 50 is indicative of expansion, while anything below 50 is indicative of contraction, but specifically within the logistics industry. So this is going to be a little bit broad in some of the terms, but if you haven't already looked at the -lmi.com report, you kind of get a breakdown on that a little bit further as well, looking at upstream versus downstream. So we're going to talk about some of those aspects, but real quick, a reading of 72.3 is down from some of the previous month's readings, but it's above 70. Well, first off, it's over 50, so it's indicative of expansion, but that number above 70 is going to be a little bit more so considered a significant expansion. So even though it was downward moving over the last couple of months here, that move that's still over 70 is still something pretty significant here.
So they're not losing faith in us.
Not losing faith.
The way this looks right here, it looks kind of scary. We see OTR kind of trending down over these months, and you see, what looks like a big change was only 75 to 72.65. So it's not really a big change. We're zoomed in a lot here on it.
Yeah.
But we know that contractual rates have been going up, which has helped, put a lot of carriers back into compliance, and we see rejection rates dropping. But still, spot rates are very, very strong. So we're still looking at a lot of good expansion, you're saying. Nothing to be worried about, even though we see it dropping down.
Exactly. So, and we're going to jump into this because like the PMI, the LMI is broken down into different components. And one of those areas I love to look at, of course, is going to be on the pricing side. So in our next chart here, we're going to look at the LMI breakout for warehousing prices. And so this is one of the areas where, Donnie, is just kind of extreme. I mean, we're looking at a pretty gradual rise. I don't think it's any surprise here that we're seeing this extraordinary increase for warehousing prices. So we're seeing a reading of 85.78 percentage points for the most recent reading. Slightly downward movement, but Donnie, this is still well above 50, and this one well above 70. Now we're having a reading of 85.78 percentage points, a slight downward movement, but that downward movement, it means nothing because it's still very much a rapid expansion and upward pressure for warehousing prices. And I think this really kind of goes into showing or signifying how much capacity or how tight capacity is and how crucial these warehouse prices are or capacity is. So we're looking at warehouse capacity right now. It is tight. Inventory is moving quickly downstream, and it's not so much really being able to get it from the warehouses to that final destination. That's really what's really been plaguing a lot of shippers, a lot of people in the transportation industry, is keeping that inventory stocked downstream. Upstream, a little bit different story. The inventory is moving a little bit slowly there, but it's almost as if downstream, that inventory hits the shelves, it's gone almost immediately.
So if we're looking at our warehouses, are they full? Are they empty? What's going on right now?
So definitely full, and what we're seeing is, like I said, the bit of a different story, upstream versus downstream, just in the velocity of how things are moving. In our next chart, we're going to look at more of those pricing and looking at inventory costs. And so in the blue line here, we have the LMI for inventory costs, which is still extraordinary high. And in the LMI TPPR, it's going to be total transportation costs. And so both still very elevated, but just as you mentioned, inventory levels, inventory costs are still very high, looking at that 85.86 percentage point reading. So we're seeing that both are moving upwards, and we're seeing that inventory level costs are increasing for each incremental unit applied.
Got it. So we need to speed up the upstream.
Exactly.
Get into the shelves.
Yeah.
And then people come buy them.
Exactly.
Good to know, Anthony. Thank you.
Donnie, thanks so much for joining us for this segment, and thank you so much for tuning in.